The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison. Ooh, Allison, what are you doing?
I took that opportunity at the wrong time to
sorry.
have that. I should have done that better, timing wise. Just as you're saying good morning, I'm like, oop, drink. So, yeah, I'm not drinking coffee right now. I know it's very, very surprising, but I love this like San Pellegrino Limonata, their lemonade. I really love lemonade.
Well, it's like we're in June now. We're getting close to summertime, so this is lemonade time. So
it is.
That's okay. I will not embarrass you or make you feel bad about it, like when you did when I drank tea for that one time. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I've got water today too, because we kind of drank a lot of coffee today, didn't we?
Yeah, I've already been a couple cups of coffee into it. It was funny. I was at work the other day and I was doing some trainings in the morning for 3 hours straight. In the first hour, like the first coffee hadn't kicked in yet. And then like the second hour, I started talking faster and I realized the coffee was kicking in. That was the second coffee. Then I was on to the third coffee. And I don't know exactly how I sounded to that third hour of training, other than like, how is she talking so fast? And I was like all into what I was saying. I was totally wired. So after that, earlier this week at work, I apologized to my employees that were like, why is she talking so fast at this time in the morning? I'm gonna drink some lemon. Yeah. So
this is good. Sometimes you can have a little too much coffee. Don't bring that up again for me.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Disregard that I ever said that.
But yeah, it is a good summer drink. And hey, segue from that, it's summertime. We're heading into summertime of 1952 with the Love Sweetie podcast here. Sweetie's gonna be getting outside a lot, and we have such an interesting story to present in today's episode. I am so excited. I know Jamie's totally distracted by the cat in the background. Franz.
Oh, he can't hear me because of the headphones now.
Yep.
Okay, so
Franz.
Never mind.
Franz. Okay. Now he's doing it on purpose
now. He's not being cute.
Yeah.
Never mind. Anyway, so it's the summer of 1952.
It's the summer of 1952, and we have some continuation of a storyline that we had in last week's episode. Now, there's an issue going on in Doylestown with the property at 363 North Main Street. Sweetie's been Sweetie and her family have been in Doylestown for about a year. She's been working on cleaning up the property, a lot of poison ivy fights going on, filling in the well, Miss Darst arguing every step of the way about everything. She probably likes the poison ivy. Okay, she's probably like, it's part of the decor. No, and then the tiger lilies.
I planted that poison ivy.
Yeah.
And you're just going to rip it all out.
We haven't even talked about the side of the house and the fact that it's still tarred black at this point in time. So when you see that photo go across, if you're watching the credits in the beginning, it looks lighter than it is. It was tarred black. It's called the Black House or the Witch House of Doylestown. I think we know at this point who the witch was, at least in that time period. And now we know it's been kind of raining on the inside because there's a massive leak in the roof. And the roof was supposed to be fixed, but then Miss Darst did her own thing as she usually does and just reached out to the roofing company before talking to the insurance company. She still managed to sort of retroactively get a claim in there, didn't cover the full cost. And despite the roofers coming out and saying that they fixed the roof a lot earlier, it's still raining inside and there's still a massive leak. And so Sweetie's having none of this. In the last episode, she wrote to Trenton. She said, this needs to be fixed and I'm going to figure out a way to get this fixed. This episode is titled Like a Dragon for a very clear reason, and it all has to do with the wrath of Sweetie coming down on this roofing company from Trenton. We're gonna get the whole tale today. Jamie, I want to get into it as fast as possible. I guess I can do some maybe reminders at the end. It is going to be in the second part of this letter, but we still have to get through the first part here in late May of 1952.
"363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, May 28th, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa, I can hear Papa giving it to me all the way here for not having written better in the past 2 or 3 weeks. But there has been much to do, and besides, I've more poison ivy between my fingers on my right hand, and almost every movement breaks the blisters and makes them ooze and spread more. Well, it's the style to wear one's ears lower this season, but Papa, not all the way to here. As I told you over the phone, Louis had been sick. I'd had him in bed from Friday till Monday, when you called me from Frank's on your way home. I was then taking him back to the hospital at Valley Forge. When I got there, they made us wait and wait before we could see the doctor. He insisted we have another x-ray made of his chest. If it had been anybody else's kid, I'd have called him a spendthrift wasting the taxpayers' money, of which I'm one, but since it was my kid, he was, of course, only doing his rightful duty. As he said, he couldn't prove a thing, either pneumonia or whooping cough. I sent him back to school on Thursday, as Tuesday and Wednesday were so bad and rainy, I just didn't like to send him out and risk a new siege of it. He still coughs some, but nothing to compare with what it had been. I came out ahead by about 16 to 20 capsules of aureomycin, 2 bottles of nose drops, some cough syrup, not to count the 2 x-rays and office calls. He looked mighty pale and washed out for a while, but is beginning to look and eat better, and so I suppose it is just another of those things to be weathered and forgotten. I also had G-Mom over for a week to recuperate from Elizabeth's visit to Florida. We had hoped to do a lot of work outside and in the garden, which, by the way, is the finest patch of weeds in the neighborhood. I can't get out there for the poison ivy, and when I do get up enough nerve, it rains, and I can't wade the mud. I've either got to get out there and get some weeds out, or else abandon the entire project. She did get to rest, as the weather was too bad for anything else, but it was most disappointing anyway. The bell rang just now, and the parcel post delivery brought Papa's package of weed killer for me. I bought a spray gun, which is what they recommend for spraying the poison ivy, and so I shall use it today as it is bright and sunny, and may not wash off for a day or two anyway. We received your letter yesterday also. I made it a point to call and inquire when school was to be dismissed for the summer, and they told me the 13th of June. Papa asked me over the phone, and I could not tell him the exact date. Was surprised from your letter to find the rural schools already dismissed. Seems strange by comparison, doesn't it? Louis is most anxious to be free of its requirements, and I wonder how I shall be able to fill his summer's demands. For already he has asked if we can't go to Franklin's Zinstitute, the zoo, fishing, to the shore, and to the Pocono Mountains, and only he knows what he'll think of in between. I must say he is curious enough about everything to keep me busy full time, but it is rather difficult when I don't get the car too often, and I've so many errands to run when I do get it. As his teacher is retiring due to her age this year, the mothers are getting together a surprise farewell party for her on June 4th. I received my invitation to attend, plus the dun for a gift, and feel I not only should go, but would also enjoy it, if my hair didn't look like the business end of a string mop. I gave Marguerite a Tony on her last visit, and have about worked up nerve to ask her to cut it for me, as she does a pretty nice job of barbering, and then I'll blackmail Elizabeth into giving me the permanent as pay for dashing back and forth to help out, while she was gadding to Florida. That way it won't be much expense, but better still, I never have liked this store-bought one that I got after Jean's visit last year, and I know that even a homemade one would be more satisfactory to me at least. There is method to me madness, you see. Well, on top of having a sick kid, G-Mom to visit, poison ivy to pamper, grass to mow, weeds to pull, washing to do, ironing to do, house cleaning, drudge, ain't I? I figured to have made myself about $500 to $7. $700, that is. Besides, I'm sure Bill will consider this rather obtuse reasoning, but since he's never considered me overly bright anyway, I'll worry about that at some future date. And go ahead with my story.
Oh, that's not nice, job, Bill. He probably, I have a feeling they kind of have like a relationship where she would like be like, you are horrible. And he's like, well, you're stupid. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of like pick at each other.
Poking at each other. What's interesting though is this letter is only written to Laura and Chester. So she's commenting on Bill. Because if it was in a letter to the whole family, she's just having a good little jest. She genuinely means it, I think, with Bill thinks she's not that bright. These side comments seem to continue throughout.
He has a tendency to do that kind of stuff from what we've seen. So she did kind of talk a little bit about Chester's letter that we had in last week's episode. So she kind of referenced, I love, that is so fun when they kind of like get the details together. So she's talking about, she got more poison ivy, of course she does. And then also, she had G-Mom over for a week. She's like, you come here and then you can just hang out. But then she's like, we're going to go work outside.
We're going to go get stuff done. Look at all this poison ivy.
G-Mom, would you mind just pulling up some of those tiger lilies over there and just dump them down the well? Thanks. No, I'm really hoping. But she did say she get to rest. And I have a feeling that if G-Mom was outside, she'd be sitting in a chair with some lemonade or something.
I think so, yeah. They have a porch in the front of the house. It's not there anymore. But there was a porch out front, and you'd watch the passersby in town, and I'm sure G-Mom did some of that. She's used to being in a busier area. This is a house on the scale with Collingdale.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good feel for, G-Mom needing a week to get away from Doylestown. Hey, what are you going to do by yourself with your kids for a week in Doylestown if G-Mom's been doing all the work? So I see this as sort of G-Mom's revenge a little bit, being like, her daughter needs to learn some responsibility with regards to all of the work that's going into it. She's just had a 2-week vacation, and then she's going to go hang out with Sweetie, which again, we were talking about this in the last episode, the reconciliation of this relationship is just full at this point. That, the relationship between G-Mom and Sweetie is really, really big. Meantime, Lewis, who's so excited to be done the first grade soon, and is probably very excited that Mrs. Houck is retiring. So
I think it's so funny that she had Sweetie for 1 year and she's like, I'm done.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not doing this again.
Game over. I thought Sweetie was going to put in some snarky comment about, like, I guess I'll put up with this retirement party if it means Mrs. Houck is over there, but she's being pretty good about it. And she's like, okay, she's older, she's done. Lewis has all these plans, but then Lewis has been sick, and I love that we hear about 16 to 20 capsules of aureomycin. This would be a good point to insert this disclaimer here.
Special disclaimer. The medicines and other medical treatments noted in these historical letters from the 1950s are specific to Sweetie's story and might not be recommended today, or are even more regulated than they were so many years ago. As such, none of the medical information contained within these letters is to be construed as medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Thank you for your attention to this message. Now, back to the show.
And we're back. Yeah.
She does mention too. I grew up in a more rural area, so the schools were out, and she's like, we were surprised from your letter to find rural schools were already dismissed. Of course they were. The Agricolae need their help.
Yeah.
The Agricolae need those little hands and feet to run through picking stuff in the fields and taking care of animals and stuff. So of course, but then, you think about the schools in town, they don't have those kind of requirements. They're not, having to go home to take care of animals or to do, the growing.
Yeah.
And they also it seems like there's a lot of days that he was not in school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He was sick a lot of the time.
He was sick a lot, but they had teacher days and the last, it just, so I don't know. I think that they probably just have to have more days.
I think this is just a continuous thing, though. Central Bucks School District, which is what the Doylestown Public School is part of throughout this time. I don't know if they recognized that as the full district and called it that, but that's essentially what it is. I always felt that we were the last ones to end school every single year, and it's just nice to see that some things never changed.
So this wasn't you guys. This has been there.
This has been like this the whole time. It's how they figure out the snow days these days. It's always like, why are we still here and everybody else has been out of school? Every single year I thought this. I see this in 1952 and I'm like, par for the course. So for Central Bucks. Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny that I'm glad that it's cool that you went there too. You know, it's cool.
Well,
That's just neat.
There's some events that my dad went to school with in high school that happened when he was in high school. And some events that happened when I was in high school. And they happened when we were sitting in almost the same room, which is crazy. Yeah, pretty much like a room over, same wing. It's just nuts to think about it. And I'm talking major historical events, and we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get there when we get there. We'll get there when we get there. Let's take it back to 1952, the end of May of 1952, because I think that this is probably going to be one of my favorite stories.
Absolutely.
You remember a few letters ago, I wrote you about the roof leaking, and that I was going to write to the insurance company who paid $500 of the claim, and also to the roofing company, who didn't make the repairs for the tidy little sum of $700. Miss Darst stood the loss of the remaining $200. We've been trying to contact that roofing company since we moved in, but Miss Darst had carefully put away the contract on which the name of the firm was written, and couldn't find it. We've been this long trying to find out who did the job in the first place, and after the 6 days of rain I wrote you about, I was fit to be tied. Wrote to the insurance company and to the roofing company, and asked if they wouldn't do something about it. I heard from the insurance company first, and they said that since Miss Darst had gone ahead and contracted to have the work done without having filed a claim, had also paid cash for the work, and the insurance company had later reimbursed her for $500 of the claim, they were not legally obligated to make amends, and could not legally force the roofers to come back and make the job good. I said I knew all that, but felt if they gave the roofers a threat with their weight, I might reap some of the benefits. They did call and recommend that the roofers return to make the job right, and the roofer also wrote that they would see what adjustments could be made. Well, they sent a couple of workmen out to fix the roof. I was ironing when they came, but quickly dropped that so I could see just how they were going to do it. As we'd suspected, they had a little roofing cement and some tar paper, and were going to give it more of the same until I opened my big mouth. I asked if that was all they intended doing, asked how long they thought it would last, and then told them I'd have none of it. Went and got the contract that Miss Darst had found, by then, and made them read it, made them read my letters, and said, "Now, what do you think of the job your company has done for $700? And if it is a $700 job, I want an itemized price list, the amount for shingles, the amount for labor, the amount for paint, and then I'm going to send it to the Better Business Bureau in Trenton and ask them if they think the DeGraff Roofing Company should stay in business any longer." They sort of stammered and stuttered around about it. One of them said, "I'm damned if I ever ran into a woman like you before." But I held on to the bitter end, told one of them if he were a man instead of a chicken, he'd get off the fence and agree with me that in spite of his loyalty to his company, he'd have to admit there hadn't been $100 worth of work done, not to mention the other $600 they'd collected. I told them they might as well take their ladder down. They weren't going to give me any temporary job and try to skin out of it that way. I tried to call the office in Trenton and told them, when I could get them, that I just wouldn't have that kind of work done, and so on Sunday the big Mr. DeGraff came himself to find out what I was so hot under the collar about. Well, by then I'd have scalped President Truman. That poor Dutchman, he didn't stand a chance, particularly as Lou was home, and what I couldn't think of, he did. Well, to cut a long story short, we took him over as well as he took Miss Darst over in the beginning. We were going to get the other half of the roof shingled, the rear half patched. You see, they took the tin roof off the front and replaced it with lock asphalt shingles, but didn't go far enough with them, hence the big leak. We're also getting the rear painted, I think, and we even made him go out and look at the patching they did on the shed, which hasn't been done right, and they have to fix that and paint the roof. That's the garage, you know. They have to replace some drain spouts that weren't even on the original contract, and if I find a few other little items, I'll bet you a dime to a dollar I can bully those workmen into fixing them too. I'll teach them to trifle with me. He promised they'd be here this week, but with rain every day they haven't come yet, and until they do come I better not be blowing my top. Yet. He who laughs last, you know. Well, that just set me up right. Haven't felt like a dragon for some time, and so I just lashed my tail and blew fire and smoke and had me a real bang-up time, and all the time I kept egging me on. Like, who do they think they are anyway? Where'll I get the money to get a roof fixed? And those open-mouthed workmen with eggy eyes will always be fun to remember. Wait till they come to do the work. I'll crack my whip, and who knows what extras I'll get. Yak, yak, a punch in the nose. But I'll keep trying.
Victory.
She was mad. Like,
Mhm.
I can imagine those two guys went back and they probably were just silent the whole car ride back.
Right?
And they're like,
Like, what just
Mr.
happened?
DeGraff, he came on a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
Business owner. I've been trying to find out more information about the DeGraff Roofing Company. If I can find a picture of him, I'll put it up on the screen. I just have this vision of like this corporate businessman who's like not expecting any trouble, and he's like, "Whoa, okay, we need to calm some things down. I will personally show up on Sunday, and we will do anything you need us to do." And then she's like, "I'm getting the whole roof fixed here, and I'm getting this part of the shed fixed, and I'm gonna go get this thing done." And Lou, just sharing the same mind, like they do so well, is just like, "Okay, yeah, hey, you're getting this done. I'm adding to the list." Like he's right there.
A roof is supposed to keep your house dry. Like, if your roof didn't do that, then like that was and it, like the fact that they took off the tin and then replaced it with shingles but didn't do it all the way. Oh, and $700. We found this out in last week's episode that's about $9,000 in that time period. And Miss Darst, like, she has such a very odd sense of priorities. She's like, no, that well's got to stay, but the roof, I'll just eat that $200. Like, the roof's not very important. Like, the house is getting soaked. It's getting destroyed because the roof is a problem. Like that would have, like, we remember the house over in, it's been so long, Hatboro. Hatboro. And they had that big storm, remember? Oh, that was a great one. Put that down there. The big storm.
Yeah.
And the water came in and the plaster was all damaged and stuff. That roof stayed together in that big storm. So I'm really glad that she was able to call them out for their poor workmanship. And hopefully, I mean, I have a feeling that we haven't heard the end of this.
No, I mean, she's doing so much work. She's just had it. She's probably still covered in poison ivy at the time this is happening too. So this is a terrifying look, and like giving the dialogue. I love when she gives dialogue for the other people, and they're just like they're not prepared to deal with Sweetie. I mean, this puts even more perspective the conversation with Miss Howe and the conversations with Miss Darst, and how she's also going to the antique sales, which is probably very male dominated at these sales, and she's doing her little fight. But I was mentioning to Jamie before we recorded this episode, this is up there with Shore Patrol. Yeah. This is just that same, like, they're expecting one thing and then the firecracker, right, goes off. And I said to Jamie as well, I wanted to title this episode Like a Dragon, because it's probably one of the only excuses I'm going to have to put dragon in a title. But that is absolutely true, as she says, for how she was handling the situation. So it's perfect for this one. She gives some other very interesting phrases about she mentions President Truman. Yeah,
that like right there, you knew she was serious when she said that. She's like, no, I don't care who you are. I do not care who you are. This is my house. And that, like, they did a really poor job, and like, she's perfect. Like, everything she said, like asking for an itemized list, I guarantee you that part is what got Mr. DeGraff down there.
100%. Yeah, he knew they didn't have the records, and she knew it. Everybody knew it. That was it. Yeah. And
I think she has written the Better Business Bureau already.
Yeah.
So he wants her to be happy. He wants her to write him again. So he's going to make that happen, which is really good, like, for her. Like, $700, like, we talked about this. This is a lot of money. That roof should have stayed. Like, that should have been fine. And that just happened. And so, like, they've been there not even quite a year yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is fun. Man, I can't wait to find a conclusion of that story.
I haven't yet written to Reverend Demarest, but will try to do so immediately following this letter. I rather imagine that Papa is pulling a sleeper on me by inquiring when Lewis's school is out. I ain't so dumb as all that, and I ain't promising he can go home with you either. Bible school begins very shortly after school is out, and there is a swimming lesson program in conjunction with Bible school that I would like to take advantage of this year if I find it isn't too risky. But I can't find very good details for that yet, and we'll have to await announcements in Sunday school to get the full picture. Just the same, I came home to celebrate your birthdays and think now you should come here to celebrate them this year. Louis is home from school for lunch, and I shall just have to stop now. Besides, Miss Darst is down in the kitchen, dyeing a dress. Yes, that would be an interesting story if I could take the time to write about it, but won't go into detail at this time. She did get mad at me, and say she didn't think she was getting enough in food and services to cover the board she is paying us. Said, if she lived at a hotel, and that's where I'll go if I find it necessary to leave here, she'd have a better selection or variety of food, and she'd have her breakfast served to her in her room at least. Wonder if they'd let her go down into a hotel kitchen to do her laundry and dyeing. Ah, well, what are you going to do? She's been down there dyeing and stirring and boiling for an hour, and I wonder if that rayon crepe dress won't be just about the right size for Maida's new baby. She can't blame me for it if it is, for I just got her what she wanted and then left and told her she was on her own. I didn't know anything about dyeing, and that is the truth, so help me. Sister, I'm getting a box ready to send to you. You'll probably have to have some help from somebody to fit some clothes, but there are some nice ones of Elizabeth's that should look very nice on you. You can share with Jean probably, and I'm sending a sweater that I bought at a sale. Thought it was wool when I bit it in, but perhaps Papa can get some good out of it anyway. I send it to Papa first, and if he doesn't want it, to whoever can make the best use of it. There will be a few outgrown clothes for your little ones, but not many, I fear. Let me know when it arrives. I'll write again to tell you it has started, but it will take me a few days to get it ready to go. Marguerite and Joe will be over for Decoration Day on Friday the 30th, be here for Saturday, Sunday, and I think Monday, but I'm not sure. They'll spend most of their time at Ditt's, but we'll be here for Friday night and Saturday, as there are some good sales. And they, like us, remain forever hopeful of finding something at a bargain. Papa, Lou is most anxious to have you come and tell us about some wood. We bought an old piano that is just beautiful wood, sits high on the hand-carved wood legs, trimmed with inlaid brass of all things. The workings were just ruined, and we could never had it fixed to be a piano. It didn't have the standard keyboard, and the strings were broken. I saved all the ivory for you to use on the piano at home. We're taking out what few insides remained, and we're going to make a desk out of it. That sounds funny, but wait till you see it. It is truly beautiful, and besides, we only paid $1 for it. We bought a double drop-leaf table at a sale the other week or so. Lou has done a nice job of refinishing it, but we don't know what kind of wood it is, and there have been 3 or 4 cabinet makers. Perhaps carpenters would be more nearly a fitting title for them. Give us 4 different answers to what kind of wood it is. We wish you could give us the right answer for it. And we've a good many other pieces we'd like to talk over with you. I do think we've self-taught ourselves quite a bit in the few months' time we've been at this, but we do need some instruction in woods. We feel you're the one to do it, and you'll probably find us more eager students than when you tried last. I am proud of the work that Lou has done. We both feel we've learned a lot since we started, and we also feel that money invested in pieces we really can't afford is money stashed away and redeemable on fairly short notice. We keep short on money for that reason, but our stock is growing, and our fondest daydreams are those of the days when we have the business going and paying. I still, in my pinch-penny fashion, suffer many qualms about buying an expensive piece, suffer equally when we think we'll sell it, and feel that we shall have to invest some money in this house to make it more comfortable, more economical, and also make a fairly good living on rooms when Miss Darst is gone, and we can consolidate our living somewhat. You'll know what I mean when you come and see us and get the $1.50 tour of the premises. The place holds great possibilities, but sometimes I wonder if they'll ever be more than daydreams for us, for the cost of the remodeling or the materials, if we could do it ourselves, is staggering. Mr. Brown dropped in on us just yesterday with some of his relatives. You know, we borrowed from him to make the payment on this house, and I was almost surprised but very pleased to hear him tell the man with him that we couldn't lose, even if we tore down all the buildings and just sold the land. But if the house could be fixed, restored, is what it needs, we'd make about 5 times our original investment. That sounds fantastic, but I firmly believe it to be true. I envy Jean and Glenn their trip with Mush and Chris, as Dee called him at Lacona, And I dared not read it all to Lewis, as he is on my ear right now to take him fishing, and I shall have to buy a license to go to the Delaware to fish. I try to visualize those kids as they are now, but my tired old memory keeps swinging back to what they were instead of what they are. When I think of M.A. having a birthday, my first picture is of her at 3 in Richland, when she and I had a picture taken together. I overgenerously gave that picture to Sister, I think, and Chris still appears as the little boy who visited at Lacona just a few short months before Lewis was born. El Goomp is still the touch-me-not blonde baby, and Dee is still a bassinet inhabitant. Isn't that funny when Lewis is such a constant reminder that time is passing so quickly? Jean, I apologize for not writing you an answer to all those letters you've written. With warmer weather, I've so much to do, and even though Papa writes that I shouldn't keep crying the blues over the work I've got to do, I just wish he'd come and see what I mean. I must admit I won't kill myself over it like I would have 2 or 3 years ago, but that doesn't mean I don't feel like walking out instead of pitching in. Besides, I've got such a terrific urge to sew, I have to make myself do what I don't want to. I've got to get the house in decent order for Marguerite and Joe and the long weekend, and besides, Murphy's are due to come on June 11th, and I've got to make some superficial improvements before then for them too. And I never did get the iris weeded, though they are blooming so beautifully, and are as fragrant as anything the French could dream up to bottle. Miss Darst was about to take great delight in them, until she found out they were mine, that Jean and I had planted them, and then she did an about-face and said they couldn't compare with some she had a long time ago. Perverse, like a spring breeze. Well, I meant to stop 2 pages ago, but here it is. Lewis has had lunch and gone back to school, the dyed dress is on the line, and I just have to stop and get busy. I'll try to drop you shorter and more frequent letters, and get back into the swing of writing as I was there for a while. Love to each of you. Sweetie.
So that was only to Laura and Chester.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Love to each of you.
Yep.
She's so sweet. That's why she's sweetie. Let's talk about how Miss Darst first is like, oh, look at how lovely these flowers are. And of course, they're yours.
They're yours. Yeah.
Never mind. Mine were much better. And then she like, and I'm like, so I had to look up perverse. It means contrary. It means like to be a Darst.
Yeah.
To be a Darst. It's pretty Darsty. So there's one thing that I kind of want to touch on, because it really does feel like there's going to be a trip, because she's like, I have a feeling Papa's going to pull a sleeper on me. He's trying to figure out when would be the time to come surprise me or something.
Yeah, that'd be a swag.
So this makes me happy. Is that what it is?
She's worried that he might show up unannounced, and she really needs plans in motion. Lou works at a base. The military isn't going to be like, oh, Chester's here, you can be free for a week, take some PTO. That's not how it works with the military. So she's like, no, he actually has to ask for leave. Hey, Chester. Chester, there's a war going on right now. Remember? The Korean War is like happening or something, and Lou's in the Navy. So yeah, there's that, and plus the whole Lewis in school thing. Lewis wants to spend time with his grandparents, and if school resumes and they come, in the fall, he's not going to get to spend as much time with his grandparents. And we know that Chester wants to teach little Lacey there all sorts of crazy things. So if he wants to take that opportunity and be with his grandson, then it all depends on what he starts to plan. But Chester is not one to be told what to do.
No, this is true. Chester does not like to be told what to do. He's a libertarian.
Yeah, I think at heart, 100%. He's just, he's completely doing his own thing. Yeah, so we get the fun ending of this letter. Then we get a couple other notes here. She's right about the property being valued even for just the land that it sits on. I mean, at this time period, the town really hasn't extended out too far past, mostly farmland. In 2026, this is prime real estate in Doylestown. So she wouldn't have gotten as much as as it would be if it was as populated back then, despite the inflation as it is now. But I think the easiest, like 5 to 10 times the amount that they paid for the property, is absolutely a reasonable figure. Based on, I was checking like the current inflation and things like that. Absolutely. It was $10,000. That's what they paid. We saw this. Thank you to one of our listeners who sent over a copy of the deed and the information that showed it was a $10,000 sale. If she made the improvements to the property, I think it would be absolutely reasonable for her or Lou to ask for between $50,000 to $100,000 with the improvements made. This is a popular place. So he is absolutely right. They're in prime real estate. He probably knows, because I bet, again, they were probably waiting for Miss Darst to just go and didn't expect Sweetie Lou and Lewis to come in, and they were probably ready to bulldoze and just move through, and somebody would have swept up that property. So it's probably the talk of the town that they're there and preventing this.
And another thing that we find out in this is that Mr. Brown loaned money to Lou and Sweetie to buy that house.
Yeah.
Because we know that she had borrowed money from Jean and Chester to buy the house in Hatboro. Which, we haven't heard anything about that. We do know that they were planning on trying to sell that after the current leaseholder was only going to be there for a few months, right?
Yeah.
So we do know that they're going to be trying to sell that. So that would be nice if they could get some money off of that to maybe pay down. But I wonder how that's working out. Like, they borrow money from Mr. Brown.
They did. And I think, it's interesting because she's borrowed money from Jean before, and she's borrowed money from her parents before. They chose not to do that in this case. And I think that's on purpose, very much so. I think she's had enough of either asking Jean for things. She feels probably just morally she's asked for too much from her sister, and her sister's now married and has her own work, and she's got her household that she's taking care of. But I think she's just done asking for things from her parents specifically. I think from Chester. I think she's probably heard it outside, and some of the little commentary has probably been not to her liking, and she'd rather, go the other route. And Mr. Brown has resources. He is well off, and yeah. I mean, G-Mom Grim's staying there for a week, so it's like a little vacation spot for her as well, and that helps.
It's true. It's a huge house, and we did learn too that there's apartments and stuff upstairs.
Today it's commercial on the first floor, and there's tenants.
Well, no, Miss Davis.
Right. Yeah, back then Miss Davis used to stay upstairs, but I mean that's the pattern. So today that is what it is. It's commercial on the first floor, and there's tenants on the second floor. I think at least. So
I mean, they could have.
Yeah.
They could have. She talked about as soon as Miss Darst, they want to consolidate their living. So I'm guessing that they probably wanted to turn most of the downstairs into just like a showroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're buying a lot of antiques. This piano to desk project.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And she talks about the ivory. To get that for $1. Also talking about antique pianos and ivory. The international ivory trade was outlawed in 1989. Pianos today are not made with ivory, of course, because of what's going on.
I hadn't even thought of that. It would be actual ivory.
Actual for $1. She's taking the ivory keys, and they're repurposing them to get them out to Chester. Yeah, but that's 100%, real ivory at the time, and it was still. I've never
seen a piano with real ivory. Does your piano have right?
It's from '63. So yeah, pianos 70s and 80s on are usually the ones that are not ivory. The piano that I do have, and I will freely talk about this as a piano player because I think it's important to acknowledge my mom's mother. My mother is a piano teacher. She went to Westchester. It was called the Teachers College. It was not Westchester University at that time. Westchester Teaching College. She was a music ed major. Her parents bought for her in 1963 a Steinway Grand, which is the same. It's a Series M for the music dorks on here. It is the same type of piano, the exact same type that Harry Truman bought his daughter. And we actually have the purchase receipt for the piano. It was about $3,600, I think, at the time, which was a lot in '63. It was like rent to own, but they just kind of bought it up front. And when my grandmother passed away, she said, Allison, or right before she passed away, she said, Allison, you're taking that piano. And I did. So the one that you have seen in my apartment, Jamie, is a real ivory Steinway piano. And it's one of my most prized possessions. It weighs about 500 pounds, and it cleared, I live on a second floor. It cleared the stairwell. I have a video of this. Maybe I'll put up the video. Great job to the moving company that did this by about 1.5 inches, making it up.
Geez.
It was, making it up the upstairs, but it is happy where it is. And it's quite a prized possession. But when I think about ivory and pianos, it is absolutely a stunning piece. For $1, sweetie.
For $1.
Sweetie got a piano for $1. She's repurposing it. Think of the ivory, and think about what's going to happen when, obviously with endangered species and endangered animals being the concern. If people were wondering when the trade ended, it was '89, and they banned the manufacturing of things of ivory for pianos. But yeah, So
yeah, they have she's talked about a lot of projects that they're working on and things, and they're still buying stuff and they're still
Right.
going through. Like, this is actually more that we've had in a few letters. And she does say too, Papa, we want to learn more about wood. And I think that part of that was like, hey, if you come out here, we will totally hang on every single word you say.
like
and
he likes
how
to
Chester
consider.
There we go. So she's definitely like, for me right now, this honestly feels like that it's the trip's happening.
Mm-hmm.
The trip's happening. It's just a question of when. So we're just getting these little bits and pieces. It's a teaser. I feel like I'm watching a soap opera, like
all the time.
And they're just constant teasers. But I think that she's trying to get Lewis, or she's trying to get Chester to come out. Lewis. I called him. I do that so often.
They're the same too. Yeah.
It's the same person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. But yeah, so she's this was shorter. I love how she's like, I gotta go. I'm gonna try to make this short. I'm really sorry.
Going. Speaking of the soap opera, I love how she's like, I can't even get into this story right now. There's a whole side story in her head that's going on about Miss Darst, who's dyeing a dress in the kitchen with like all the boiling dye. Like, no, it's like, and to me as a reader, I'm like, wait, what's happening with Miss Darst right now? And she's like, no, I can't get into that right now. I'm like, oh, we want to hear this story about. She's teasing this. She's teasing this story to Chester too.
Chester said though, he's like, it's got too much. He mentioned in a letter, it's got too much Darst in it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear more about Miss Darst. So she's probably like, no, but I want to hear more about. I
want to hear about this story with the boiling water and what happened to the dress.
Well, I hope that it fit. Man, and I wonder, like, if that was another way for Miss Darst to say, like, I don't think I'm making my money's worth with. I'm like, really? Like, these people just saved your roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever.
Ridiculous.
Anyway,
fixing the whole property, all this. No, okay, fine. Yeah.
That was actually like a pretty decent sized letter. I like it. Oh, so we have another letter.
We do, but before we get into that, I did want to show one thing. I want to have a little history moment here with the Times. Now, I just mentioned earlier that the Korean War is going on. That's going to be going on until 1953. But there's some other stuff internationally that's happening. So I was looking at one of the papers, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. And, I spotted this one article here. Very interesting article. It says, Reds cut West link to Berlin. So really big part of the Korean War is the fact that the Cold War is going on at the same time. And we have, of course, the split. We have West Germany and East Germany. But Berlin, which, of course, is split up itself, with some of the Western powers, is within East Germany. And so now it's becoming more difficult and like the communications going on. So there's this picture that appears in this paper. It says, moving swiftly following the signing of West Germany's peace contract with the Western Allied powers, the Russians have taken immediate measures in retaliation, including barring Allied patrols on main highway linking Berlin and West Germany. In a forerunner of what is believed to be a new Berlin blockade, East Berlin officials have also severed telephone communications for line repairs, quote, line repairs. Russian armed guards have been reinforced all along the East-West German border to prevent a further infiltration of subversive elements, spies, and terrorists into East Germany. The latest action follows closely the path taken by the Reds in 1948 when Berlin was isolated by land. So the paper's reminding us at this time that the situation in Eastern Europe, it's going to be getting pretty hot despite the cold nature of the war here with regards to Berlin. In the 50s, there's going to be one major conflict. We're a number of years off from here, but in 1956, I think probably the biggest thing that's going to happen in Europe is going to be what happens in Hungary. So we'll be getting to that at some point. We see Czechoslovakia on the map here. That's going to be in the 60s, the Prague Spring. But just to think, like, we're starting to see the severed communications into Eastern Europe. We're starting, especially in Germany. And this is being reported on. And it's important because this could seem like, hey, like, is Sweetie taking a look at this article? I can pretty much guarantee you that the Sweetie was looking at this article. This is the first time in the podcast, Jamie, that we are looking at the Daily Intelligencer from the day after she wrote that letter on May 29th in Doylestown. This is the first time we're looking at one of the Doylestown papers. So the people in Doylestown are getting this news, and she is no doubt looking at this.
The Intelligencer?
The Intelligencer was the paper in Doylestown.
That is fantastic. I
Yeah.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Intelligencer. Ooh, that sounds like a racehorse.
It does, right? Yeah.
It sounds like a racehorse. I love
Mm-hmm.
it. This is something too that so I was in high school. I am a little bit older than Allison, so we do kind of have very similar experiences, but I was in high school when the Berlin Wall came down. I
Mm-hmm.
think. When did the Berlin Wall come down?
Was that 89?
89. I was not in high school.
Yeah.
I was 9.
Yeah.
Forget it. But
You're
I
in school.
remember
Yeah.
all of that happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I remember hearing about it, like and hearing that kind of stuff. So I was not very familiar with the beginning of all of this.
Yep.
So this is cool to see and cool to
Mm-hmm.
see like how that progressed because they grew up with that. And like, I can't, like our generation kind of came in at the tail end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
neat to see. There's actually, there was a piece of the Berlin Wall at Nemacolin.
Mm.
It's a resort in Pennsylvania. It's in Western Pennsylvania. It's a very lovely resort. They have like a casino and stuff there.
Yeah.
They have
They have a
it's
large
fancy.
block of
They
the
have a
Berlin
large
Wall.
block of the Berlin Wall. It was neat
Mm-hmm.
to see. So this is cool to see, and it's also really fun to like. This is a paper that Sweetie would have really read.
Absolutely looked at. Yeah, Miss Darst would have seen this. I have no reason to believe that they were not getting the Intelligencer at the time. And they want to be on top of what's going on. Like, she really wants to know these things, and she can really read these things and understand them. They've been through the war, especially they're at war right now. She wants to know, especially for any updates with Korea. So they're going to be reading the papers every day.
And this was very good writing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like
great.
boom.
Yeah.
Like this, like
Mhm.
it's really fun to read the different articles from these time periods. So yeah, so we still do have to remember there's a war going on.
Yep. And now this is going on. Yeah. But heading into the second part of the episode today, this is the first so far, only time in the Love Sweetie podcast where we are not going to finish the letter we start by the end of the episode. And there's an important reason as to why, and we'll talk about that reason at the very end. But we do have two parts of this letter. It's not just because it's long. There's a very distinct reason as to why next week we'll pick up with the second half of what we're starting here. But this is June 2nd, 1952.
363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, June 2nd, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa, Jean and Glenn, and the rest of the clan. Well, today is Jean and Glenn's first anniversary. Seems time has passed by so quickly. Saturday marked the year of our arrival in this mausoleum, but even that doesn't seem so long taken by and large. I don't feel much older, perhaps a little wiser, but there's still room for advancement. I might as well admit it. I received Papa's letter on Saturday asking why the delay in not writing. I guess I could use the phrase on Mama that I use on Louis so often. When I anticipate some mischief on Louis's part and stop it before it gets started, he often asks me, "How did you know what I was going to do?" I always answer, "Buster, I know you like a book." And so with Mama, when she says my delay in writing has been just a period of inactivity, I must say, she knows me like a book. I have already written you, though, and you should have the letter by now that acknowledged the weed killer and the letter for Louis, which explained in part my period of inactivity. I might add right now, though, that Louis is resuming his nocturnal coughing, and I shall have to renew my efforts to get it killed. He can take the aureomycin only up to a point where it nauseates him, and he vomits it before it can get to work, and at the expense of one dose I am too stingy to see it take a round trip, so shall try sulfa for a time, and hope that is successful. He remains without temperature, but the coughing is a menace to a normal disposition as the loss of sleep is, and so must get it under control PDQ. Emmy's birthday. I prefer not to count then, but believe this must be her 14th, isn't it? Oi, where has the time gone? No, yes, it is too her 14th birthday. Egad, sir, it is. I'm mailing her a birthday card, which will arrive a little late, but then I guess they don't expect them on time from me any more. And they're about to take the right attitude at that. Well, since my last letter to you, Marguerite and Joe arrived on Thursday evening in Norristown. We took Miss Darst and went over for dinner on Friday afternoon after Louis had taken flowers and gone to school as usual to parade with the kids on Decoration Day. Mr. Brown bought a 22-pound turkey for the family dinner, and we just filled ourselves to our eyebrows. Miss Darst seemed to enjoy herself, though I had to abandon her and do KP in the usual manner. We brought Marguerite and Joe over here in time to go to the sale at Causey's at 7 p.m. We didn't find much, but feel we did get the sleeper of the sale, a Charles I chair, dated about 1625 to 1640. It dates that period, but the date isn't marked on the chair itself, for $1.50. How we managed to get it, I don't know for sure, except that it was way back under the piles of junk, and not many people had a chance to examine it before the sale began. It isn't in just a number 1 condition, will take some repair work, but it is practically a museum piece anyway. Marguerite and Joe were delighted with our cast. The big Dutch linen presser closet. Joe was quite envious, I think, but had to admit it was a good buy. On Saturday we went to 2 sales, trying to pick the one where we'd be most likely to get the best buys, and wound up getting just practically nothing. Well, you can't win every time, and it is about time we had a breather anyway before we do any more buying. Saturday, after the sale, we took Marguerite and Joe back to Norristown, had more turkey, and then we came on back home. Yesterday, Sunday, was raining cats and dogs. Miss Darst went to church and then to spend the day with a friend of hers, the widow of Dr. Croft, who Jean met when she was here. So we went back to Norristown for more turkey and then on home to bed. Miss Darst got home just a minute before we did, so I didn't have to worry about dinner last night either. Marguerite and Joe went on back home from Norristown. Marguerite had to go to work this morning, and Joe is in the midst of making arrangements to go to Summerstock Theater. He hopes to go to Boston again this year, but doesn't know for sure. Marguerite is going to go to Texas for 3 weeks in August to visit her mother, who I understand is becoming depressed and morose over her unabated cancer, to the point of not writing, though she is working out some kind of an oil deal on their property and is in the midst of making a changeover from dairy to steer raising. I wonder if she might not also be having a period of inactivity as far as writing is concerned, rather than being depressed over her physical well-being. Marguerite had some lovely new clothes. Her hair, that I permanented for her the last visit, looked very nice, I thought, and hope that I can get Elizabeth to do mine soon, as it is just too for anything. I must get it washed and screwed up into a kink, though, if I'm to attend the party for Lewis's teacher. Have just discovered the roofers have arrived to do the work they should have done in the first place. The pounding will probably have Miss Darst downstairs in a few minutes, so I shall have to stop for a minute to go get her breakfast ready for her. I slept late yesterday and didn't have her breakfast ready when she got downstairs, and she was fit to be tied. Came the closest to just being out and out mad enough to cuss that I've seen her. She didn't actually swear, heaven forbid, but she was mad enough to grumble and grumble, which, to my way of thinking, is almost as bad.
Oh, we don't want to make Miss Darst mad.
So, a lot of interesting things going on here at the beginning. I love that we get one piece of historical data that we did not have from the absence of letters in 1951. When she's writing that this is the time period of Jean and Glenn's first anniversary as a married couple, she writes the following: Saturday marked the year of our arrival in this mausoleum. So from the letters alone, we can now put a date on when they moved to Doylestown, which is satisfying. Yeah,
that is satisfying. It's satisfying to have a specific, precise date.
Yeah, and of course she's calling it a mausoleum because a lot of stuff that we all know. But then she also gives an abbreviation here at the end of the second paragraph, which I wasn't familiar with. Jamie, I don't know if you were familiar with it. She says, he remains without temperature, but the coughing is a menace to a normal disposition as the loss of sleep is, and so must get it under control, PDQ. Which was the time. Mean? So PDQ means pretty darn quick.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I like it. I'm like, wow, we should use this today. I think it's like an IT term, but I'm like, apparently you can also say pretty damn quick, but I think she probably would have been darn because it's Sweetie, so we'll stick to.
Yeah, she would have said darn.
Pretty darn quick.
I have heard that, but I was very young when I've heard. I was like, PDQ sounds very familiar, but pretty darn quick. Yeah.
So, yep.
That's cute. I like that.
But in this one, we do have the sale. We do have the chair. Again, with her chairs, she likes chairs so much.
Like, next time I'm going to be like, oh, Sweetie found something. Was it a chair?
Yeah.
Was it a chair?
Mm-hmm.
Was it a really, really old chair?
Yeah, 1600s is pretty old for $150. She's like, I don't know how I got this one. It needs some work, but yeah.
She hasn't bought a chair in a long time.
Yeah, this was probably very satisfying for Sweetie to pick up this chair. And then she talks about Marguerite's mother, and we get a
Yes.
little more information about Marguerite's mother. Now, I had learned that Marguerite's maiden name was Franklin, so it's a very common name. And she's in Texas, a very big state. So I'm trying to go through the records to figure this out, but she gives some critical information here. Marguerite's mother has a big farm or ranch in Texas where she has been raising cattle, and she is potentially going to sell it for its oil. So you can only imagine how big this is with someone who's very sick, who's trying to take care of that, and that being overwhelming. So I'm going to try to see if I can find more information. Maybe it'll be in the papers in Texas about Marguerite's mother's farm, because I think that could, I guess it would be considered a ranch, I would imagine.
I'm guessing that. So I'm guessing her
cattle.
father's passed.
Yeah, that's what I'm
because
thinking from this.
he's not handling any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's handling things that would be typically like the man's job.
Yep.
Handling the sale and dealing with clients and dealing with the business dealings of the ranch. I wonder how if so she must. I mean, if you have a farm like that, you've probably been there for a very long time.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm guessing that Marguerite was from Texas, like she lived there. So I'm wondering how her and Joe met.
Yeah, I'm really wondering this whole mystery. I think slowly it gets filled in. But the fascinating part is, if you have this woman in Texas, Marguerite's mother, we know Marguerite's personality is pretty strong. I imagine her mother's personality is pretty strong. We don't see the meeting of Marguerite's mother and Sweetie, but a woman by herself running a whole cattle ranch in 50s Texas and dealing with oil corporate execs trying to get her land, she was probably also very much like Sweetie. And I bet they would have gotten along.
She had cancer.
And she had cancer, and she's working through it. So.
And she had cancer, and it was very, very bad. This was not an easy, like, G-Mom had radiation treatments for her cancer in her cheek. And from what if you can glean the information from that, it didn't really knock her down because she was left for 2 weeks alone with the kids. So she was able to do it. But like, we have heard nothing but Marguerite's mother having problems with this
for years.
And like that, for a very, very, very long time, which is very, it's upsetting to, it's upsetting to hear this about somebody, and I'm really hoping that you can find some more information.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. And the more I keep considering Marguerite's mother, the more I'm like, now there's the story we don't have all the details on yet. And I bet that's usually some of the best stories, is like the ones we have to detect it together. But this little piece, oil executives, 50s Texas, cattle ranches, like,
that's a soap opera.
Yeah.
That's a soap opera matriarch handling it while also this is crazy.
Yep.
We do see here too that with Marguerite and Joe, they are also antique, aficionados. And we know that, remember, when Collinsdale was sold, Joe did get a lot of pieces.
He did,
but he also has the money to refinish those pieces. So those are why they went to him. But they are also looking for things and going through, and he said Joe was a little bit jealous of that cabinet. I was like, oh, there you go. I think that's fun too, that the brothers have a shared interest. Yeah.
And Joe and Marguerite never had children. So I think we know where some of the antiques wound up. But moving into the next part of our letter here.
I meant to use the weed killer the day it arrived, but it is a good thing I didn't get to it, as it has rained so hard and so much that all the spray would have been washed off and probably would have done little good. Perhaps I can get to it today. But in the meantime I pulled some weeds out, around the iris, and around the lilac bushes, and got me a nice dose of it again. I didn't know there was any there, and so did not use much caution, and am paying for it now. It was rather warm that day, and bending over and pulling weeds made me hot, which made my nose run, and as I swiped and sniffed I planted it on my nose. Also at the inside corner of my right eye and all over my right hand. My nose has previously been described as having marked likeness to that part of a chicken which clears the fence last, and now trimmed with fine blisters and tomato redness. I know without a doubt that people wonder about my dissipation. I tried to mask it over with some calamine lotion, and that only added to the circus-like quality of a bulbous snout. I feel like a sister to Snozzle Durant, and worse, I look like her too. During my waking hours, I can make myself keep my fingers off it, which is fine. But in the night, I often wake myself up with it hurting like all get out, for I've scratched it or rubbed it in the night, and that prolongs the visit. My right hand is bad with clusters of it between my fingers, and on the back of my fingers where they get banged so often. I didn't know it was there, or I'd have been more careful. I know it now. All this is up in the front of the yard, as I just haven't had the courage to go back out into the garden. Papa's letters are encouraging as far as your visit to us is concerned. However, there are some things I'd like to mention to you in regard to the time you should come. First, it is increasingly hard for Lou to arrange leave as summer and warmer weather approaches. Actually, he should have put in for leave by now, to get it in the midsummer, and along with that is the likelihood of his having another cruise this year, which may be for 10 days or 2 weeks. There is one to go out this month sometime, probably the second week of June, but I understand it is already filled. However, Scuttlebutt says there will be one at Norfolk, Virginia in July, and they expect to take the entire complement of the base. That may or may not be true. However, I don't want you to wait to come in September to go to the Demery Family Association meeting unless you come early enough to get a good visit with Lewis, as his school starts, probably the 2nd of September. How would it be if you came in July and stayed till after the family meeting? That way you'd be able to spend some time with Lewis and sightseeing, and then go home after the family dinner. Lewis is quick thrilled at the prospects of your visit, and needless to say, so am I. Lewis said to me the other day, I'd rather have my Grandma Demery come and see me than Grandma Graham, 'cause we see her any old time, and it has been a long, long time since we've seen Grandma and Grandpa. I concur. If you could set a date that we might plan around, it would be a help as far as the leave is concerned. I should like very much to attend the family meeting with you, but you should know that Lewis will be dreadfully hurt if you come when he has started back to school. It makes it practically impossible to do much sightseeing on account of being home when he gets here, etc. I can see your coming in July or June, if you can spare the time, and staying until September as a fairly satisfactory visit, unless you can stay all winter, too. As for the list of things we want you to bring, I don't think of a great many things, but I do want to get my bid in for some iris cuttings, or roots, rather. These are so lovely. I hope to get some more space cleared, if I don't get into poison ivy again, and we'll make a big bed of them in the side yard. Mr. and Mrs. Murphy are to come June 11th to get Kay from school, I think. They plan to take him to the shore for a week's visit, and then he goes to camp with the kids from the school. I think they are going to try to take him south in the fall, if he improves sufficiently. Jean mentioned a visit from KM and R. I know you'll be pleased to have them. She also mentioned Florence's new job, but aside from its being at the new Veterans Hospital, I don't know anything about it. I like to get letters, of course, but when you just skim the surface, it is enough to needle my curiosity, as well as my patience. However, for Jean's information and my superiority for being in on the know, James Roan's new wife is Eleanor, and it is the baby who is T. I think she looks a lot like James, and she looks to have luscious chocolate brown eyes like Mama's and Aunt Rosanna's. I haven't written to Aunt Rosanna special, but sent her a copy of the family epistle if the carbons are clear enough to be read. But then, I don't hear from her too often either. Hint, hint. As I wrote you, Lewis's school is officially out on June 13th. He doesn't have any classes after the 10th, but has to return on the 13th for his report card. The 11th and 12th, there are no classes. The teachers complete their records and get the report cards ready for the 13th. They are there for only a short time to get their cards and say their goodbyes, and then they are done for the year. Lewis is just tolerating these last few days, as he is so anxious to be free once and for all. I think everything considered, he has done pretty well this year, but I am hopeful for additional interest next year. I'm subscribing to their weekly reader for the summer for 50 cents in the hopes it will keep him from forgetting the reading he has learned, and will also keep him from getting too far removed from school. I hope to make a trip into the Philadelphia Zoo in the near future when school is dismissed. Well, this isn't all I'd hoped to write in my effort to remove myself from Papa's doghouse, but it will keep Mama from coming home from the post office absolutely empty-handed, as she's been doing for a few days. I've had to fix Miss Darce's breakfast, get Lewis's lunch, and a number of lesser jobs, and it is now 12:30, this not mailed, the dish is sitting, and I shall have to be a-flittin' quickly. We'll write again in a day or so, but apologize for the delay this time, and hope I can keep from slumping again. Love to all of you for the time being, till I can write again.
Well, I do notice that was not signed, but that's because that was not the end.
Nope. Yeah, that's exactly why.
That's exactly why. So this is the first on the podcast, is that we won't be finishing a letter today. But I think that next week's episode, when we do, I think we'll all understand why.
Yeah. Sweetie has had this, and she's mentioned it for probably like 5 episodes now. This questionnaire from Chester has been sitting on her desk, taunting her for her lack of response. And she was supposed to get to it probably months ago, probably in April. Now we're in June. It is still sitting on her desk and taunting her. And so, Sweetie's continuation of this letter is the full answers to Chester's entire questionnaire. It is a long questionnaire. Chester likes to know about everything. So that is the feature of the beginning of next week's episode. We'll continue with the letter at this point. You can tell, though, that she's reached the conclusion of the day-to-day. And that's why the break is occurring here. And she will sign for the final part of the letter at the end of the questionnaire next week. But that's going to be for the listeners then. In the second half of this main portion of the letter, she does get into a lot of interesting information. Again, she's talking about Lewis ending school for the year, which is really, really big. He finishes the first grade. Mrs. Houck retires. He has to get his report card. I do have some of the school records from Lewis. I'm going to see if we have that first grade report card. If we do, we're going to put that on the screen. I think we at least have the second or third grade report card. So we do have some of them. And we might have some stuff from first grade. So, and she kept all his school items in a certain box. Thank you, sweetie. So we'll go through some of those records. But I did want to talk about this one comment she makes about her nose, because it's a neat little historical piece here, which is Snozzle Durant, she mentions. And it really should I pronounced it wrong actually in the narration. It's Schnozzle. She says with her bulbous snout, she says she feels like a sister to Schnozzle Durant. I'm like, who is she talking about here? Is this derogatory? I don't even know who she's talking about, because it sounds like it could be. It's really not. There was a nickname for a very famous comedian who was known by Schnozzle. Like, that was his nickname, and it was because of his nose. And I do have a picture of this comedian, so because I think this is an interesting piece of pop culture here. And it is a comedian and an actor that we are actually familiar with in ways we might not be aware. We've had these little connections to things from our childhoods and other ways. But this is Jimmy Durant. He was a famous comedian, and he was nicknamed Schnozzle, and that is why. And he ran with it. He was well known for it. He was well liked for it. I mean, just for his comedy, he was known for comedy, and so he does his thing. Very, very famous. He was big in the 40s, so that's why in Sweetie's letter, everybody's know who she's talking about. 100%. He was well known. He is well known to us as well. His voice, I'm sure we've all heard him. He is the narrator in Frosty the Snowman in 1969 in the old cartoon. So if you've ever seen the old animated Frosty the Snowman, it's Jimmy Durant, or Schnozzle, who is narrating that. And he was also known for singing. And I was looking at some of his filmography. Basically, his tracks are being used today because they're interesting to use. One of the most amazing films, not for the children, is the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix in 2019. That powerhouse performance in the trailer and in the film. There's a Smile song, an old school Smile song that's playing. If you go watch this trailer, that is Jimmy Durant who's singing it. It's Durant's version. So if you want to hear his voice, if you're interested in hearing something and going to a little bit of a nostalgia to your childhood, if you watch Frosty the Snowman in the next holiday season, just know it's Jimmy Durant, who's the narrator. And if you are a superhero fan or a supervillain fan and you're watching the Joker, the next time you see that trailer or listen to that movie, know that that's also Durant, that he's been repurposed and they've used his songs. Really, really acclaimed, but I thought that would be interesting to talk a little bit about a famous celebrity.
I'm sure her nose wasn't that loud.
Yeah, probably not, but that's what she's trying to get across. She's had a rough go of it, really.
Yeah, the poison ivy is but at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and put the blame on her for it.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, sweetie, but like, it's out there. If you're going to start pulling stuff and you don't have protection on, then you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. That being said, I did go out the other day and get myself some itchies, like pulling stuff, because I wasn't paying attention, because I was like, I don't feel like running in and getting gloves. I'll just be really careful.
Yeah, my mom did too, actually. She just recently got some poison ivy, and all I can think is, but it's probably still not as bad as Sweetie. So.
Well, I guarantee, I had like a little bit of like, I think it was a stinging nettle. I don't think I actually got poison ivy. So I know I didn't, because it's not there. Yeah. But I was like, honey, you have to wear gloves. Okay, you have it all over the place. But she has a spray gun now, the Chester Center, and it seems that there is a visit coming. It's definitely coming. So maybe Chester will have a better idea and won't be so hard on Sweetie.
Maybe.
We'll see. But all this is left for next week. So make sure you tune in.
Bye.